All right, let's get this party started. All right, where are we? This is so exciting. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Vernita White. I go by Dr. V, and I am the Brilliant Life Strategist, and I help high-achieving professional women who are in some sort of transition, whether it's mid-career or in life. I help them to reclaim their voice with confidence. I help them to realign with their core values with clarity, and I help them embrace the reinvention with courage. And I'm also a consultant with school districts and universities, and we focus on the areas of STEM education, leadership, and cultural consciousness. And within that, we do the same thing with the realigning, reclaiming, and embracing reinvention, because though that profession needs all of that as well. So we are in the middle of Vlogmas, in case you did not know. Yes, I'm so excited. And before I start, let me go ahead and get the rules of the giveaway out. We are doing a giveaway, and what you have to do is going to be all through the series of Vlogmas, the 2021 Vlogmas. So you have to like all of the videos, you have to subscribe to my channel, and then comment on all of the videos. And you might be thinking, really, Dr. V, comment? Well, yes, comment, so I'll know that you actually got something from it. And let me know down below if you have a question or whatever your takeaway was. And if you disagree with something that I said, be sure to say that you disagreed and then tell me why you disagreed. And then do that all the way up until the 25th. And then I will go back and we will go back and look through everything and say, okay, we have our winner. So those are the rules for Vlogmas 2021. And make sure you're in the 2021 playlist, because I do have one from 2020, but that one doesn't count. So make sure you are in the right playlist. So today we're going to talk about 5 ways to be a successful parallel-preneur. And some people may be saying, like, what in the world is a parallel-preneur? Well, those are my people, like parallel-preneur, because I don't believe that everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, nor do I believe that everyone needs to be an entrepreneur. However, I do believe that everyone that has a whole bunch of brilliance, especially those of us with all of these degrees, we need to embrace that brilliance and then have something else along the side to where we are sharing that beyond our positions and our titles. And so I say a parallel-preneur, it sounds better than a side hustle, in my opinion. Honestly, I think there are two different things, but they can be sort of the same thing. So you'll hear me say side hustle, but what I'm really saying is, for a parallel-preneur, is it aligns to what you are currently doing, or it has a leg, attached to something that you're currently doing, nothing like too far off. So it's not like you are one of college professor and on the side you sell real estate. You can do that for sure. That's not what I'm saying, but it's really about the people who you're starting off and you're just kind of trying to find your groove. And some people may disagree. Some people may say you need something completely different. But let's scratch that. Whatever you want to do on the side, you're a parallel-preneur, but mainly about the people who are keeping their main thing. They're in their career, so it's not just like a dead-end job. Because people with dead-end jobs, it's like you start your side hustle because that's what you want your life to be. But a lot of people that I've worked with and talked with, and a lot of people that I'm around, they actually love their careers. They fought hard for it, went to school for it, or got additional training for it, but they want to do something else beyond that. So I hope that was clear. You will hear me say side hustle, but it's really that parallel-preneur, like you're working in conjunction with what you're doing with your investor, your main job. So we're gonna jump right in. I'm gonna share 5 tips, and I think I have a bonus all the way to the end, so make sure you stay to the end and hear that. And I would love to hear some of your tips. So this is not a monologue, it is a dialogue. And even though I'm talking to you like right now, and you can't talk back, you talk back to me down in the comments. All right, so let's get started. So did you know that there are about 44 million people who have side hustles in the United States? And then we're talking just the United States, not even worldwide. 44 million people who have side hustles, or they're in some form of being a parallel-preneur. They're doing something on the side to generate revenue. So we're not talking about hobbies and things that you like to do. We're talking about things that produce revenue. So to be successful at doing that, because if the panorama didn't show us anything else, it showed us that we can't rely on one stream of income. We have to have multiple MIT, multiple income technologies, or multiple streams of income, right? So if 44 million people have it, that doesn't mean that all 44 million people are successful at it, right? So I was doing some research. It's like, well, how do you become successful while you're building up your side hustle or becoming or you're a parallel-preneur? So I found a few tips, but I narrowed them down to 5. So the first one is be really, really excellent at your investor, your main job. Do your main job well. And I know a lot of people, they start off saying that they hate their jobs. That's why they want to do something on the side. But it's not really that you hate your job for the most part. You just need another outlet to be able to do what you want to do in your job. Because sometimes our careers, even though some of them can be great, when we start moving up in the world or start moving up the ladder, sometimes it can be, we can be constrained because now we're following protocol and we can't be expressive. Because sometimes it's like, man, when I was just a regular person at this job without some titles, I can do whatever I want to. But the higher you go up, it's almost like the more restrictive things become. So then you might feel like you hate your job, but a lot of times that's not really it. You just don't have an outlet to be your full self. However, doing something on the side can be your outlet, but you still need to make sure you do your main job really well. That is your investor. That's just the right thing to do. I don't want to say you have to be loyal to it, but in a way you do, because without your current, there would be no opportunity for you to do your creative outlet, your side hustle, to be a parallel-preneur. And that's just being in integrity, right? So I know a lot of people, and I was like this, like, let me just do this on the side. While I'm at work, if it's downside, let me work on my other thing. And while there were times that it was cool, I think it was cool to do it, because sometimes I would be sitting in my office hours in between, like my classes, I did everything I was supposed to do. Then I did that time. Then I worked on my other business. But when it started interfering, like, oh, I don't have time to do the main job because I'm working on this, that's a problem, and you're out of alignment, and you're not going to get the opportunities you deserve because something is slacking. So because then you don't want your side thing, if it blows up, you don't want anything to hinder that because you weren't grateful and loyal and in integrity with your main thing, your main job, your main investor. So in order to be a successful parallel-preneur, you need to shift I don't want to say you need to, I would suggest that you shift your attitude and your mindset and say, you know what, I'm grateful for this main job, this main gig, all of the benefits, if you have those, and it is allowing me to do what I need to do on the other side, or what I want to do on the other side. So expressing that gratitude and showing up and being in integrity. Because let's say your side hustle, it blows up and it's like, wow, and then you start having people come work for you. You don't want them to do the same thing. You don't want them to slack off on your vision and dreams because that's what you did for someone else, right? So stay in integrity, show up fully, be yourself, do everything you need to do, and then you can do the things that you need to do on the side. The next thing to be a successful, so number 2, the next thing to be a successful parallel-preneur is do not take on any debt for your new side thing, right? The goal of a side, to be a parallel-preneur or have a side hustle, is to bring in additional revenue. So you don't want to have something that requires you to go fully in debt. So think of something low cost, think of something that's a low barrier to entry. If it's direct sales or network marketing, what is the buy-in for that, and how, do you have to be tied to it? Can you just walk away when you don't want to do it anymore? Do you have to constantly buy into it? If it's coaching, you can pretty much start that with no overhead. If it's consulting, you can pretty much start that with no overhead. So think of things that don't require you to make huge investments and go into debt. Because like I said, the goal is to build up additional revenue. So you starting off in the hole on the side, don't do that. And I'm going to add, you don't want to take so much from your investor, your main thing, and dump it over into your side hustle without, some ways to generate revenue. Now, if you know that you can take $10,000, $15,000 or whatever, because you know your thing is going to hit, then absolutely go ahead and do that. But you don't want to go into debt for something that's on the side, something that you're just testing out and starting on the side. That's just me. That's just my opinion. I also read a lot of this from several business blogs. So I was like, which ones do I agree with? Which ones do I have I experienced either directly or indirectly? So those are the ones I'm sharing with you. And a lot of people say, don't go into debt for your side thing. There is, you are supposed to, or it is good sometimes to take risk, you know, when you do things, but we're talking about parallelpreneurs. Entrepreneurs who go full, they can do that. That's what they do. But for our parallelpreneurs, the ones who are keeping, you know, they're like doing things at the same time, I suggest you not go into debt for what you're doing on the side, like massive debt, okay? The third thing to be a successful parallelpreneur is to follow a strict side hustle schedule. So gone are the days, especially if you want to be a parallelpreneur. Now it's up to you, but if you're watching this, you probably do. Or if you're thinking about it, let me help you out before you start. Your nights and weekends are no longer just let me come home and crash and do whatever I want to do. This is your time to really focus on your side project or like a business, because parallelpreneur is like entrepreneur. So I'm going to say it's a business. You're going to create a schedule. If you get off at 4:00, then you have a break time. What are you doing like 6 to 9 or 7 to 10 or whatever those hours are? On the weekends, are you working first thing in the morning, or are you scheduling time at night on the weekends to do the work for your side business, right? Are you, do you have a schedule of tasks that you need to complete? Do you have a roadmap or some strategies to follow so that you know what you're working on and you're not just saying, oh, or I'll get to my side business when I get to it. You do that for hobbies. You do that for crafts. You do that for leisure time. But when you're thinking about a business and being a parallelpreneur, it's like you have your main job and your main schedule. So that way so that goes back to number one. That way you have the hours to spend and focus and maximize your time with your investor. And then you have the time to maximize the time with your side hustle and give your full energy and your full attention there, so they're not competing. You don't want to feel, what's the word I'm looking for? You don't want to feel like you're neglecting one or the other. So it's like, you don't want to be at your full-time job and you're like, oh man, I need to do this for, you know, my side hustle. And then you don't want to be at your side hustle. And then you're like, oh man, I really need to be working on this project. If you're fully focused on the hours that you give to your investor, maximize that. And when it shuts down, it shuts down. Same thing with your side hustle. When you have those hours, maximize those times and get it out of the way, get it done. And that way they're completely separate. The reason why that's important is because let's say your side hustle, your parallelpreneur has propelled you to become a full-time entrepreneur. You've already set your habits up and your schedule and your time and your mindset to treat it like it's a real business versus a side hobby. So that was tip number 2. So tip number 4 to become a successful parallelpreneur is to dream big, but start small. And I know some people are like, oh my gosh, that's negative. Like, you know, you don't want to have little thinking. You don't want to have small thinking, but that's not what I'm saying. What I took from this is, and from my own experience in working with people, you do want to have the major dream. Yeah, whatever your dream is, whatever was put into your heart's desire, it is meant to be that major and probably then some. But thinking small, starting small, not thinking small. Starting small means, here, I'll give you an example. There are a lot of people out there talking about build your 6-figure business, build your 7-figure business, blah, 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 build, you know, go after the money and this, that, and the other. That's the point of starting a side hustle, because we want to generate revenue, absolutely. But if you're focusing on the 6 figures or the $1 million and things like that, it could be like daunting, like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get there. But if you switch your mind to, how can I serve 1 million people? Or I like to say, like, if you're chasing 6 figures and 7 figures, how can I serve, you know, the 6 figures, so 600,000, you know, 100,000 starting at 6 figures, 100,000. How can I start off serving 100,000 people, and then breaking that down to like 1,000 people, 10,000 people, well, 10,000 people, 1,000 people, 10, blah, 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 breaking it down. So yes, you want to hit those big goals, but if you start thinking about how can you serve the people, whether that's through a product or a service, then things become a lot easier. And the reason why I say start small is because if you can serve 10 people well, I mean, yes, you got to adjust the strategy, but you can serve 10 million well, right? I mean, of course, you got to add some more infrastructure, but it's pretty much the same thing. You know, if you sit there and focus, okay, I serve these 10 people well, I serve these 100 people well, and you're building up your skills, you're building up your confidence, you're building up the structure, the clientele, and you know, it's like snowballing. And then, you know, you may not have to keep going, you know, individually up into a million. Who knows, that 1,000 people that you serve, or maybe 10,000, depending on how, you know, what product or service you're using, that could propel you to having $1 million, $10 million impact, right? So I hope that makes sense. You still want to have the $1 million dream if that's your desire, 6-figure, whatever your number is. You still want to do that, but sometimes our mind tricks us and like, oh my gosh, that's so far away. But if we think about, well, let me scale back and say, let me not focus on the money, but let me focus on the number of people that I can serve and provide value to. Let me do that and grow that. And let me get really good at that and grow that. I was like, I want to serve the masses. I want to transform the lives of 1 billion people, which is true. I still do. But sometimes I, you know, end up in fetal position because I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to get there? And I had to take my own advice and like, whoa, bring it back. Did you serve 1 today? Did you serve 10? You know? And when you do that, that's how you get your reach. And the more service you provide, there is, and I've learned this, but there is a correlation between your impact, which can be your service, and your income. So I hope that makes sense. So dream big, always dream big, but then start small and build upon that. So do not despise small beginnings. So that was tip number 4. All right. So the last tip before because I do have a bonus tip for you, so stay after this, is focus on the things that generate revenue. The purpose of a side hustle to be a parallel-preneur is to generate revenue, and then of course have an outlet, you know, to share your gifts and talents elsewhere. But don't get so bogged down in the administrative tasks. If you are a solopreneur, meaning it's like you by yourself right now, there are going to be things that you have to do on your own. However, if you keep it small and not focus so much on I have to have the right spreadsheet, or I have to have the right colors, I have to have, you know, the right everything right in my website, and you know, those small things, they're important, but you don't have to be so meticulous about them, right? You just need to have it great enough to where it represents you, and then you need to get into action. So if you need to do the things that generate income. If you are a writer, you don't have time to be, you know, focusing on your website or creating handouts and things like that. You need to go, if you write for other publications that pay you, you need to spend most of your time writing. And then when you get all of that out, then you can focus on the administrative tasks. If you are a speaker, you need to spend the time honing your skill, but then actually going to speak and getting feedback, getting on stages, getting on platforms, podcasts, whatever the case may be, and speaking. If you are a coach or a consultant, you need to be out there coaching and consulting, whether it's 1 people, 2 people, a group, whatever the price may be. Those are the things you need to do and to get into action, because we can plan all day. We can, we can get so busy being busy. That's what I want to say. We can get so busy being busy, like, oh my gosh, I need to create all my social media posts. That's important, but just watch where I'm going. Oh, I need to make sure I have the right handouts for this. Oh, I need to make sure my email copy is right. Oh, I need to make sure that my colors are right. Or let me go back and check, what did I put on my website this time? Or did I do, I need to set up my webinar and things like that. Those things are absolutely important. But our minds, especially the more brilliant you are, the more sexy excuses you have. So this is how you know that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Once you created something, if you find yourself going back to always tweaking it without putting it in front of people, or without doing the thing that generates money, then that's how you know you're wasting time, right? So I hope that makes sense. So yes, we need those tasks in place, those administrative tasks, but our main focus, the bulk of our time, is being the talent, being out there doing the things that you're supposed to do. If you sell products, are you selling products, or are you, you know, watching trainings and taking notes on things? You know, are you being busy, right? So you know what I'm saying? Like if you're smiling, you're nodding, you're like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm talking to you. So again, I'm not saying you're not supposed to do those things. That goes back to your schedule. Did you build time in your schedule? Like, you know, 2 nights a week, you do administrative tasks, but 3 nights a week, you're out there doing income generating activities. Then we have a side hustle going on. Then you're a parallel-preneur. But if you're spending all your time, you know, doing the small tasks, then you just wasting time, right? So that was tip number 5, is to make sure that you are doing what you're doing to generate revenue. If it doesn't pay, and I heard this from someone, if it doesn't pay, leave it for another day. No, not leave it for another day. If it doesn't pay, put it away. Or, I mean, you can leave it for another day, but put it away. Like if it's not bringing in the money, like let's be real, the purpose of a business is to generate income and then have impact. So if you're not doing either one of those, you don't have a business. So if you've done the webinar, cool, ride out with the webinar what you have, and then get some clients from that webinar, unless it's something like totally like gone wrong. But go out and do the thing, and then you can get feedback. But don't just sit there and, you know, tinker with it until it gets perfect, because it'll never be perfect, you know. So get it out there and get it done. So our bonus is bonus time. This bonus was really for me, and sometimes I have to keep telling myself this. It kind of goes with number 5, but it's get in action and always stay in action no matter what. And we like to plan and ponder, sit there, think, philosophize, you know, in our heads, especially those of us who are very intellectual. We love to be in our heads and analyze and overthinking, and we're like, oh, I'm just thinking through, I'm problem solving. No, you're not. You're wasting time, and you're avoiding the real work. You can't, and I heard one of my coaches say, you can't intellect your way to success. You can't think your way to success. The only way to be successful is to be in action. And then Joan Baez says, and I heard this from my coach years and years and years ago, action is the antidote to despair. And she likes to add, Lisa Nichols is, action is the mother, father, sister, brother, auntie to despair. Like if you're sitting here and not liking your circumstance, not liking your situation, you have to be in bold, radical action. And that doesn't mean it always has to, it doesn't mean it always have to be right. You just have to move. And I'm one of those people for years. I would be like, oh, okay, let me figure out, let me get it perfect, and then I can move. Or let me figure out, because that's the mathematician in me, and then that's the engineering thought process that I have. Let me map it all the way out first, and then I can do it. Well, no, let me say that's the mathematician in me. When I started really focusing on engineering design, especially in my consulting work, it was like, how does this relate to my journey as a digital infopreneur? And it was like, a mathematician, we like to problem solve and logically see the pattern all the way through and get it all the way to the end. With engineering, the design of an engineer, the thought process of an engineer with engineering design is, let me do enough, get enough, test the product, do it, test it, do it, test it, do it, test it, do it, test it. Go out there, implement, make it better, but put it out there, get the feedback, put it out there. And it's more action-based than trying to figure out all of the things that could go right or wrong with it, right? If you're not trying to build a business, there's nothing wrong with that kind of thinking. But if you're trying to build a business and impact people and make money, right? Then you have to constantly be in action and putting your things out there. And then later, life will course correct you. God, if you believe in God, I do, he will course correct, but he can't, you know, we're like, Lord, order my steps. Well, he can't order steps that you don't take, right? So he didn't say, let me order first and then take a step. We say, Lord, order my steps, meaning that we have to step and he orders. You know, just think about anything else you've done. You'll write a paper when you were in school, then you had to edit, then maybe your professor gave you feedback, then you had to turn it back in. But you didn't sit there and wait until it was perfect because you knew you had to turn that paper in on time. So it's amazing how we'll just do stuff, get it done. I made it, you know, then we can get feedback. But when it comes to life, it's like, oh, I don't want to submit anything because I may be wrong. Well, you don't know if you're going to be wrong until you submit it and get into action. So that was the bonus I have for, I'm looking at, do I have anything? Yeah. That's the bonus I have for you to be a successful parallel-preneur. So let's recap. The first thing is to honestly, crush your full-time job. Be loyal, be in integrity, and do the work. Don't daydream, don't slack off. Do what you're supposed to do with excellence, because you are that type of person. So show up for the job and be grateful for it. So that's number one. Number two, don't take on any unnecessary debt when you're starting a side hustle. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be relaxing and enjoyable. Well, maybe not relaxing all the time, but it's supposed to be enjoyable. It's not supposed to be a burden, because you could just focus on your full-time job for that. So do things that will bring in more revenue than it does taking out. The third thing is start with a Parallel-Preneur or a side hustle schedule. Get a real schedule. What are you doing on the nights if you work during the day, or vice versa? What are you doing during the day if you work nights? And what are you doing on the weekends? Have designated time hours, non-negotiable. When you go to work, it's non-negotiable. You're here from this time to that time, and you focus on that. Well, now we should be focusing on that based on tip number one. But then it's like, all right, now that's done. Your brain shuts off from there. You get a little rest. Now what are you doing for your business consistently with the schedule, right? Tip number 4 was to dream big, but start small. Yes, we all you want 6, 7 figures, 8 figures, 10 figures, whatever. There is no limit. But then don't get overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? Keep the big vision ever before you, but then break it down and focus on impact and service versus income. Yes, we know we want income, but how can I serve this small group of people? And then how can I build up my skill, build up my confidence and my system strategies and structures to now go from 10 to 100 to 1,000, and so forth and so on. Because that way, later on, you'll be able to leverage what you have to go at that maximum rate. Sometimes, I didn't say this earlier, but sometimes people start small and then they get these things tightened up, and then it's exponential growth. So I don't believe that things have to take a long time. It can grow exponentially, but if you focus on tightening up early, then who knows, it could take off very quickly. So that's why some people, it's like, oh, they were an overnight success. Well, yeah, because over the nights, they were doing things that compounded interest, right? Consistency and tighten it up. And then like when the influx came, they were ready to explode. And number 5, only do things that generate revenue, or a majority of the things that you do in your side business or your side hustle should generate revenue. If it's not gonna pay, then put it away, right? So remember that. Yes, you're gonna need to do some of the small tasks, but that shouldn't take up majority of your time. You are the talent. You need to be out there talenting. You need to be out there doing the work. And then that goes back into our bonus. Make sure you are in action no matter what. Don't do the busy work for the sake of doing the busy work, because our brains can trick us. Be in action, whether it's right action or wrong action. Do something, and then you will get course corrected along the way. Some of my coaches say that they were ignorance on fire. And in a way, ignorance on fire works, because you're just doing a thing and let's see what works. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes we can over strategize or over complicate or overthink things. And sometimes we just got to do it and be in action. And then we get feedback, and then we continue, right? So I hope you enjoyed those. Those were 5 ways to become a successful Parallel-Preneur. And again, that is someone who still has their main career, but then they want to do things on the side whether it's similar to what they're doing or they're starting another business altogether. So I hope those tips were helpful for you. Comment down below. Let me know which one was your favorite. And then if you have any other tips, please share, because you don't just learn from me, I also learn from you. So thank you so much for listening and learning with me. And remember to be well, be empowered, be bold, and be brilliant. Until next time. Bye.